Hello world, and welcome to Web Dev Frontiers. My name is Tamas, and I'm here to share my experience with you in web technologies. In today's video, we're going to look at a couple of array methods in JavaScript that I'm hoping you were not aware of, and I'm going to give you very particular use cases where you can apply these array methods in your projects and benefit from what they have to offer. Well, if you're ready, let's dive straight in. The first example that I would like to start with is going to be a method related to sorting elements inside a JavaScript array. Now, this is going to be a very typical use case. So for our example, let's assume that we have an array of names that in this case comes from a file called data.js. And as you can see, we have an array of names here without any particular order. Now, you could have a use case whereby you would like to order the items inside the array in an alphabetical order. And of course, the method that you would reach for in JavaScript is called sort. However, there's a particular issue with the sort method in JavaScript, and I'm going to highlight that to you right now. By the way, the project that you see here is just a vanilla JavaScript project created by Vite, and that's what I'm going to be using to demonstrate to you the array methods inside this video. So I'm logging out the names, and if we go to the browser right now, you can see that we get the names again in no particular order. So let's change this. As I said, you would be using the sort method. So you would do something like names.sort, for example. Okay, and maybe you would like to store this in a variable. And then let's go ahead and log the sorted variable to the console, hit save, go back to the browser, and notice that now the order of the names are in an alphabetical order, starting from A to Z. This is great. So this is the sorted array, and probably you think, okay, I've achieved what I wanted. However, let's see what happens if I print out the original names array as well. So I've added a little bit of explanation to the console log statement, and we're printing the original as well as the sorted array. So let's go back to the browser and see what we get. And if you look closely, you can see that both arrays are now sorted, and this could lead to a potential problem. You see, what we are doing here is we are changing the original array. And that's really not good practice because, the original array could be used somewhere else and you don't want to change its order. But basically, it doesn't matter where you call the sort method on your array, it's going to change the original. Now, I'm going to show you another example where this is going to be more visible using a UI as well. But generally speaking, you don't want to mutate your original array. So you would need to create a way so that you can sort the array so that the original array remains intact. And you saw that inside my code, that even though I called the sort method and I thought I'm going to save the value of the sort to a new variable, it still mutated the original names array. So let me update this code a little bit so that we get some UI elements added to the page as well. And then let's go back to the browser and see how this would materialize in a real application. Now, what this code does, it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this example, but essentially I'm introducing a little bit of a reactivity, so to speak, with vanilla JavaScript. And we're going to be taking the data, the names array essentially, and just add it to our HTML. And I will have a button as well on the page. Let me actually show that to you. So I'm listing out the names in the original order, and I would like to have another column in here, which would then display the names in a sorted order. And I have a button here that says sort names, and this is going to call the .sort method. So if I click on this, notice what happens. Now the original order and the sorted order is exactly the same. So this is the same behavior that we've seen before. And this is clearly not good, because what if you would like to display the same data set, but in one instance, you would like to see the original version of it or the original representation of the names, and then you only want to see the sorted names inside the second column here. So this is clearly a problem. And to be honest with you, I had this happen to me in a real project and it was really frustrating, but JavaScript has a solution. So there's a fairly recent array method that you can use in JavaScript that got released, and that is called toSorted. So instead of .sorted, it would be toSorted. So let's take a look at how that would work. So notice that I went back to the simple example first, just to demonstrate to you how the toSorted method would work. And I am now going to print out the original names array and the sorted array. And notice that I'm now calling the toSorted method instead of sort. So let's go ahead and save this file, go back to the browser and see what we get. And immediately you see that the original array is still the original. The alphabetical order is not there, but for the sorted array, the data set has now been sorted accordingly. So this is great. So let's go ahead and implement this inside the UI as well. And notice that now I have added another button on the UI interface, and now I'm calling the toSorted method as well. So we're going to now have a visual representation of what happens if I call .sort or .toSorted. So let's take a look at this in the browser right now. And you can see that we have the original order appearing inside the two columns. And now I'm going to click on toSorted, and notice that the original order still remains, but the sorted array now shows the alphabetical order. Whereas if I use sort, then of course the entire data set is going to sort because we are mutating the original names array. And on top of toSorted, there are two additional methods that you can use on arrays. Typically these would have exactly the same behavior as toSorted. So for example, .reverse and .splice would both actually mutate the original array. And therefore, if you don't want to do this, if you would like to create a new array, so leave the original array immutable, then you would have to use toReversed or toSpliced. Okay, so these are the three array methods that I wanted to share with you. The next array method that I would like to talk to you about is called .with. So .with allows us to essentially specify an index and a value. And what we're going to do with the .with array is we're going to replace an value at the given index location with a new value that we specify. Furthermore, we're going to make sure that the original array is not going to be mutable, meaning that the resulting operation of the .with method is going to create a brand new array for us. So let's take a look at an example. So here we have a names array with two elements, Peter and Kate, and then I'm going to call names.with 0 and then Tom. So what I'm saying here, again, that at index location 0, I would like to replace that value Peter with the new value Tom. And I'm also going to create a new array, a brand new array, which will have two elements, Tom and Kate, and I'm going to call that updated names. So let's actually print this to the console and see what result we get in the browser. And if you notice, we have the original array as well as the new updated array where the first element is now the element that we have specified. Now, the good news with the .with methods on arrays is that it can be part of a chain of method calls that you apply on arrays. So typically you may be using a .map or a .filter or a .reduce method on an array, and now you can add the .with method to that chain as well. So let me show you two examples where this could be really useful for your projects. And in the first example, we have a numbers array where we have numbers 2, 4, 5, and 8. And maybe, this data comes from a user, or, you have some data that you would like to manipulate one way or another. And so we would need to change that value 5 to a 6 and then do additional operations on the array. So as I said, with the .with method, we can have the array methods chained. So what we can do first is replace that 5 with a 6, and then we can call a .map or a .filter or any other array method chained onto the with method. So let's take a look at how that would look like. And here's an example on how that would work. So we use the .with method to take the value at index location 2 inside the original numbers array, and we replace it with 6, and then we call the map method, and we're essentially going to square every single number. And so if we save this, and if we go back to the browser, we will see that the third number is in fact 6 squared as opposed to 5 squared. So our operation worked. But let me give you an even more complex example where the with method can do wonders for you. And for this example, we're going to assume that we have a hypothetical shopping cart on an e-commerce website, where the shopping cart is an array of objects, where each item in this array has an ID, a name, a price, a quantity, and whether this particular product is in stock or not. And of course, why would you have something in your cart that's in stock false? Well, you could wait with the checkout, and by the time you hit checkout, in stock would have updated to false. But again, this is just a theoretical scenario. We're not really worried about the logic behind the e-commerce application. We're just going to look at the with array method here. And first, I'm just going to print out the cart value so that we have access to that inside our console. And then I create a new variable, essentially a new array of objects called updated cart. And first method that we use is the with method, where I take one of the items at index location 1, so that's going to be the second item, and I take the quantity and I change that from 2 to 3. So I basically change the quantity of product B inside the shopping cart. Then I essentially iterate through all the elements inside my shopping cart, and I apply a discount, a 10% discount on the price. Maybe that was a promotion, but we can do that programmatically by doing a map method. Then I'm only going to continue to work on the products where the product is in stock. So I have a filter method here, which is going to filter out only the products where the in-stock property has a value of true. And last but not least, just to show you every single possible array method in this chain, is we're going to call the reduce method, where we're going to take the item price multiplied by the item quantity, and we're going to add that to a rolling total, meaning we're essentially going to calculate the final price for the shopping cart. Okay, and then updated cart, actually I call it updated cart, it probably would be a better name, something like final price or something like final payable price. And essentially, remember, the value that we're going to get is not going to be easy to calculate by looking at this, because first of all, we change the quantity here, then we apply a 10% discount, so we're not going to get a round number. But anyway, let's save this code, go back to the browser. And as we can see here, we have the original cart and we have the final value of 63. Now you can verify this manually, but I'm pretty sure that based on all the logic that I put in the JavaScript code, the total payable amount is in fact going to be 63. So this last example showed you how to use the with, the map, the filter, and the reduce array methods all together. And the last and final array method that I would like to show you is going to be called the group by method. And for this example, let's assume that we have an array of objects called products, where each product has a name and a type. Now, what we can do with the group by array method is we can actually group our items together according to a specific criteria. So what we're going to do in this first example is we're going to take the type values, electronics, clothing, and groceries, and we'll try to group the items like the laptop, the t-shirt, the smartphone, according to the types that they belong to. And the perfect way to do this is by, of course, calling the group by method. And this is how that code would look like. So we have object.groupBy, where we apply this group by method on the product array. And then essentially product.type is going to be the grouping criteria. So we're going to take the values found inside the type property in this array of objects, and that's what we're going to be using to group our elements. And now all I need to do is just print out grouped products. And if we save this file, open up our browser, then you will see that in fact what we have are 3 groups: electronics, clothing, and groceries, and then each of those would contain the appropriate elements as objects. Now let me give you one more example, which is going to be a little bit more complicated, but it also shows just how valuable the group by method can be. And for this example, let's say that you're working on some sort of finance tracking application where you have data about transactions, and then each transaction would have a type, whether it's an income or an expense. It will also have a category such as salary, groceries, utilities, and it would also have an amount. And so now your task is to group these transactions, whether they are income and expense, then whether they are salary, utilities, and groceries, and then sum up the values based on their categories. And again, you can use the group by object method on this particular array of objects. And to achieve the desired functionality, you actually need to use the group by method twice. So first, I create a variable called group transactions, where I use the transaction type, income or expense, to create group transactions. Then I take the keys from those transactions, right? So I take the actual type values, and then I call the group by again, but this time around on the transaction category. So now salary, groceries, freelance, entertainment, so on and so forth. And then I call the reduce method, the method that we've seen before in a previous example in conjunction with the with keyword. I filter out using the filter keyword the amounts that are less than $100 because, you know, I may want to exclude that. Maybe that's such a small amount that I don't want to display it on a particular chart. Again, many use cases here. And then I call the reduce method to then calculate the amounts based on the categories. And then last but not least, I'm going to print out the group transactions variable. So let's go to the browser and see what we get exactly. Okay, so now we get income and expense. So we get the two main categories. And now if I expand those, if I go into say expense, then I now have a sum for all the entertainment, the groceries and the utilities expenses. If I now expand income, I can now see that there was a freelance work and some salary as well. And we can go back to our sample data and in fact verify that for groceries, we have two grocery expenses, 150 and 200, summing up to $350 or pounds or whatever currency you want this to be. And if you verify that, and if you double check what we have here, we do in fact have groceries of 350. So this worked. And as a result of using the group by method, we now have this nice way of representing the data using two levels of grouping. And that's it. I showed you a couple of methods that you can use on arrays and make sure that you manipulate the array without changing the original. And I also showed you an extra method that you can use on objects to achieve grouping of your data set based on certain properties found inside typically an array of objects. If you have used any of these methods, please let me know in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something about the JavaScript array and object methods. If you did, please give it a like. Also do subscribe for more such content. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.